On today's edition of Andy and Ari on 3, presented by BetMGM, we are overanalyzing spring practice videos. That's right. We need a hit. We need something. It's a long off season. We've got tiny little videos, seconds of frames of players making plays, of doing things like Malachi Toney catching passes from Darian Mensah at Miami practice, Cam Coleman catching passes from Arch Manning at Texas practice, David Sanders Jr. mauling people at Tennessee practice. We will overanalyze 10-second videos all day today. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing. Plus, BetMGM has put out the win totals for the power conference teams. We dig into the Big Ten totals today. Ohio State, not the highest total this year. We'll discuss all today on Andy and Ari on 3, presented by BetMGM. We are sponsored by BetMGM, home of the Pick a Twin to Win free-to-play game. That's right. The Cabinet Twins are facing off in the Court of Legends game at the Bellagio in Las Vegas, and you can win a share of $2 million in bonus bets. Here's how you do it. You opt into the Pick a Twin to Win free-to-play game. You select which Cabinet Twin, either Haley or Hannah, you think will win the Court of Legends one-on-one basketball game. If the twin you pick wins the game, you will win a share of $2 million in bonus bets. Now, that's not the only thing going on at BetMGM. Obviously, you know what's going on this week. March matchups, odds boost, each day of tournament games, March 26th through March 29th. You know what March means for college hoops. Lock in for every game and make your March moment when you bet with boosted odds. Activate your odds boost token for any March matchups bet, and you'll receive a bigger payout if your bet wins. Also, March 26th, March 27th, and any sport odds boost token will be available to you. BetMGM players will receive an any sports odds boost token. To use the token, add a wager made up of bets from any sport to your bet slip and activate the token. If you win your wager that was made with the token, you receive extra winnings in unrestricted bonus dollars. Lots of different ways to make it legendary this week at BetMGM. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. U.S. promotional offers are not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona. Call 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts. Call 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa, or 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only, subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use the bonus code CFB and get your $1,500 first bet offer today. Welcome to Andy and Ari on 3, presented by BetMGM. And Ari, it's one of my favorite times of the year. Spring practice is in session all over the country. We have multiple schools starting spring practices this week. I believe LSU starts today. And of course, we've got videos trickling out of these different spring practices where we get to see things we haven't seen before. Maybe some people we have seen who look different, or maybe they're wearing different uniforms. And Ari, this one dropped today, courtesy of New Era Prep. It is Darian Mensah throwing to Malachi Toney at Miami practice. Baby Jesus is wearing number 1 now.
You know what this?
Darian Mensah's wearing number 10.
You know, I think I've said this on the show before. I don't know if this is a thing on all beats. But when I was on the Ohio State beat, there was an event every single year, which was when the players checked in to the hotel for fall camp. And all the reporters and TV people would gather around the front of this Hyatt near campus. And people would take pictures of the players walking in their street clothes. Then it was routinely one of the most high-trafficked, most highly anticipated things on the internet for the fans. Because I think that they were looking at the players, their bodies, how they, how they present themselves, how big they got in the offseason. And I always was like laughing at like, this doesn't mean anything. But sure,
it means everything.
Except it means everything, which is these clips. And it's like, okay, we just saw Malachi Toney catch a 5-yard out route in the flat. He's wearing number 1. You know what means more than this clip? Him kicking the crap out of everybody in the college football playoff on national television. But if you want to see the beautiful spiral that Darian Mensah delivers on film for the first time to your star player, I understand it. Because, it's been, I don't know if this off season is going slow or fast, Andy. Sometimes I feel like it's going slow because there haven't been a lot of groundbreaking stories. Sometimes I feel like it's been going fast because, hell, man, we're already in mid-March, past mid-March, and we're almost, chucking along here towards the beginning of the preseason. But this is the first taste of football that a Miami fan really gets. This is the first taste of football that we're all getting. And it's cool to see new players in their uniforms doing football things. The thing that I am amused by the most, and what we'll talk about today, is when people get nervous, sad, angry, or anxious over what they see. And the genesis of this entire episode was how people reacted to Byrum Brown at Auburn. So we will get to it. Yeah, but it is cool to see Darian Mensah throw to Malachi Toney. It's
all we got, Ari. It's all we got, and that's the thing. Is like, we need the little fix. Just
a little one of these. Yeah,
you gotta get the fix.
It's a little taste. Yeah,
but you're right. It does make people crazy. And do producer River, do we have the Byrum Brown footage? Let's look at Byrum Brown throwing passes at Auburn, and this caused some serious consternation on the internet. So if you're listening in podcast form, you should be watching this episode on YouTube, by the way, because the video is important. The video adds lots of context.
We will do our best to verbally explain what we see in the video too.
It is Byrum Brown throwing passes at Auburn's practice. Byrum Brown, obviously the quarterback who came from USF with Coach Alex Golesh and had great years the last couple of years. Byrum Brown last year threw for over 3,000 yards, ran for over 1,000 yards. Very successful quarterback at USF. I think, Ari, even though a lot of Auburn fans probably said they watched a lot of USF last year, I think there were some Auburn fans that maybe didn't really watch any USF last year because they seemed a little surprised by Byrum Brown's throwing motion, which is, well, what I'd say unorthodox.
Yeah,
it is not
good word.
It is not what the NFL talent evaluators would call the quickest release. Yeah, it is. The ball dips down near his hip a little bit, but I will tell you this: Auburn fans freaking out, or Alabama fans making fun of Auburn fans because their quarterback has this motion. It works. It works. It works. It works. I went back and watched a bunch of USF clips again from last year because I was like, did I miss something? Because I knew he had a fairly unorthodox release. I'm like, did something change? Is this different? Nope, same release. It works.
Okay, so let's do the reality portion of this, which is it's an ugly release. Okay, like there's no other way to put it.
Yeah, but Philip Rivers' release wasn't the prettiest release in the world either, and it got the job done.
Which is a wonderful transition to the positive. Have you seen this man's thighs?
Have you seen people attempt to tackle this guy?
Now his throwing motion might be left to desire, but this guy's got log legs in a way that, like, in the uniform, he definitely passes the getting off the bus test. And I brought up the Ohio State thing because he certainly would have gotten a lot of clicks and a lot of views getting off of a school bus heading into a hotel wearing his street clothes. So, like, listen, I think too, a lot of times you want to have a pure motion and things are desired from an NFL standpoint that, might not be necessary in college, Andy. If he can throw, like, the throw profile that you have to be able to complete as a dual threat quarterback in college is nowhere near the type of profile that you need to be able to complete in the NFL. So if you're an Auburn fan and you're concerned about his throwing motion, That's fine. The only thing that you should be actually concerned about is whether he can get the ball to the intermediate routes that are going to be open and designed for him, while also terrorizing people with his legs. Like, I think that he's going to be a very good player. I don't know that I think he's going to be the best passer in the SEC, but here's the thing, Andy, he does not have to be the best passer. He needs to be effective enough to run the system that Alex Golesh is running. And guess what? He is at Auburn because Alex Golesh knows that that's somebody that he can entrust with his first year. Trust me, if there's anybody on earth that doesn't want to flop in the first year at Auburn, it's Alex Golesh. And listen, Auburn also hasn't been the poster child for handling failure with class or with rationality. So, like, if he is going to put his whole first year on his guy, like, ugly throwing motion or not, like, you might have a chance at having one of the best pure playmakers in the SEC in year one. So if you want to make fun of his throwing motion in March, go ahead. But I don't think that that's all important. And I would say that some of the best players that I've covered during my time in college football have not even sniffed the NFL. So, like, it's not the same thing.
Auburn had a cornerback playing quarterback in 2013 in Nick Marshall, who took them to the national title game. So, by the way, awkward motion, yes. Beautiful spiral, also yes. Here it is. The classic NFL film shot under the football where they've tracked the flight of the football. Okay, so this is from the same motion. He can load it up and chuck it.
It doesn't look quite as bad in that picture either. Or that video.
It's the rival fans are going to make fun of it until he beats them. And that's the mandate. Now, will he beat them? Different question. But that's the mandate.
But we know he's going up a level, and we know he's playing in the SEC. But we actually did watch USF last year.
Yeah.
It was a sight to behold. Like, he took over teams. So,
and if you look at the message boards, you look at the rival fans chiming in, they're saying, oh, those SEC D lines are going to pick his pocket because he's putting his hand in his pocket before he throws. Okay. Again, 240 pounds, runs real fast. It's not that easy. He's not going to be standing back there like a statue. That's not when he's uncorking the ball. Like, this offense is designed for him to uncork the ball when he's got some room around him. And because the threat of him taking off is there, the defense has to be very careful. They have to keep a spy on him. A lot of times he's throwing to one-on-one coverage. It's not necessarily a situation where he's trying to, just drop back and sit back there. And yes, that extra time is going to hurt him. I don't think it's going to hurt him very much just because of the way the offense is designed. But yeah, I thought that was funny because even Auburn fans, you could tell there were some already that got a little nervous.
Yeah.
Like, wait, what? You gotta watch the tape, guys.
Yeah.
You gotta go back and watch it.
I mean, if you are nervous about Byrum Brown, my suggestion to you would be during this long and sometimes boring offseason where you're craving football and need it in your veins to go watch him play last year. And again, I think that there are some things that he did last year that he will not be able to get away with at the higher level. But I think that's true for everybody who did things at lower levels. That goes.
Well, a good game for them to watch. Go watch him play against Florida in the Swamp. That was a pretty good defense. Coaches who played Florida told us that they had a really good roster. They beat Texas. So Arch Manning, didn't come out of the Swamp with a win, but Byrum Brown did. And that way you can see Byrum Brown playing probably with less talent than he's going to play with at Auburn. Now, a lot of those guys, not half of them are going to be the same guys because they came to Auburn with him. Like Cole Best, his center, came. They brought their best receiver. They brought their best running back. So you're going to see a lot of the same guys.
And say what you want about the American, Andy. It was a highly competitive league last year. Very. And here is Byrum Brown's stats during the meat of the schedule against North Texas and Memphis and Navy and all the teams that were competing for the title last year. 245 yards passing, 82 yards rushing, 256 yards passing, 111 yards rushing, 269 yards passing, 121 yards rushing, 239 yards passing, 109 yards rushing, 327 yards passing, 136 yards rushing. The guy is an absolute stat demon. And I'll never forget the opener last year when they played Boise State on Thursday. That was the same night Nebraska and Cincinnati played. He had a monster game against Boise State in a 34-7 win. So like he just turns nothing a lot. And I think that like the NFL draft and what his throwing motion will look like at the combine is of no concern to you if you're an Auburn.
No, don't worry about that.
That's his journey that he's going to have to overcome.
Yeah.
You don't really care about whether he's going to go to the NFL or not. What you want is a competent quarterback. And listen, guys, Jackson Arnold had a really beautiful throwing motion. That didn't go well. So like, let's just, like production,
Yep. All right. Well, let's go from irrationally worried to now very excited, but it's one rep. We go to Knoxville, Tennessee. David Sanders Jr., the number one offensive line prospect in the class of 2025, had to go in, become a starter right away. He was the starting right tackle last year. He's going to be the starting left tackle this year as Lance Hurd has gone on to Kentucky and transferred. David Sanders Jr. is just an athletic specimen. I remember meeting him at an event we had when he was still a recruit, and just, he's 6 foot, I believe he's 6'7". At the time he was a shade under 300 pounds. He's grown since then. He's incredibly athletic. Now, that doesn't get it done, as you'll hear from David Sanders a little bit later. But you know what does get it done? This block. Look at David Sanders just mauling somebody. Just
safety. I mean, who was that? I mean, like,
no, that's a D lineman. That's an edge rusher.
That's a wild play. You get your blood pumping too when it's an offensive line rep. Like usually it's a one-handed catch or something. Is that holding? Like technically,
referee Twitter is going to say the hands around the back. They might get that. Listen, it's a violent game. The officials don't see everything. You might get called on that one. That's a 50-50 right there.
Yeah.
But the way just the violence with which he finishes this block, they want you to finish your block. Every O-line coach in the country, including Glenn Ellerby at Tennessee, goes, finish your blocks. That's a block that got finished, Ari. Finished.
We're over-analyzing spring clips, but he is their best player.
Getting way too excited.
But like he's their best player, right? We didn't find out anything new. Like he's actually like legitimately really good.
Well,
right?
He wasn't their best player last year. He was, and he will tell you that he was struggling at times because he was learning on the go as a true freshman, and also he was probably smaller, lighter, weaker than he wanted to be going against some of the monsters that he had to play against. But let's hear David Sanders Jr. talking about what he was last year versus what he is right now.
When you watch your tape from last year now, what do you see, and how did you get through last year as a freshman? Or do you are you impressed with what you see, or you go, man, I've come a long way?
Honestly, it's impressive, and it's just like, how did you even survive? Because you look at some stuff like I'm even doing now that was not happening last year, and it's just like, how did you survive every game last year? But I feel like my athleticism kind of took over throughout the games last year, and was able to get me through. But I feel like this year I'm just a lot more powerful, and like I said, I know everything now. So being able to read out my keys, my hand placement, my assignments are a lot more smoother. So I'm doing less thinking and more just playing off of instinct. So that's really good. But yeah, I definitely be watching some of the games, especially like installs for each week. Well, like old clips will pop up, and I'm just like, bro, like what were you doing? Like you just hold it on for dear life. But so yeah, it's kind of funny when you go back and look at it. Definitely came a long way for sure.
It's amazing when someone that physically impressive talks about holding on for dear life. But that jump from year one to year two as a starter. So David Sanders 6'6", 305 right now, and that jump from year one to year two as a starter, especially on the offensive line, is big. And you can hear that from that interview with him from Brent Hubbs at VolQuest, that this is a smart guy, and he understands very clearly what he got thrown into and now where he is. And he's on the left side now, which he said he's much more comfortable playing. And I know people, if you've never played offensive line, you're like, what's the difference? It's a huge difference. You're used to having one hand down in your stance versus another hand down in your stance. You're used to moving in one direction over another. You're used to having space to one. If you're a tackle, you're used to having space to one side and not the other sides. And Tennessee fans understand this really well because Darnell Wright was a great offensive lineman for them when he played on the right side. They moved him to the left, and it didn't work out very well. So they moved him back to the right, and he was awesome, and he's still an awesome right tackle in the NFL. So,
well, I didn't go to medical school, or law school like you. But you know what I see when I see clips of Sanders? First round draft pick.
You see the traits. Yes, he has all the traits. He has to play well. He has to put them all together. He has to be consistent. But yes, he has the athletic, can't teach type traits that some people are only born with. And
what's the thing about
those.
Sanders that I might really like and be attached to?
He was a 5-star.
Yes, he was.
Yes, he was definitely a 5-star
because of the traits that you just mentioned.
So, what does this mean for Tennessee? We don't know, but I'm happy to use this one rep of practice to say David Sanders is going to be awesome this year. Tennessee's offensive line going to vastly improve. I don't know if they will, but they need to because they will be protecting a first-year starting quarterback any way you slice it. And that is the big question for Tennessee. And of course, there's video of that too. George McIntyre and Faison Brandon. We can break down video of them. Now, is there a lot of video of them? Not really. They've been very careful, what periods they allow everybody to watch.
If I recall this correctly, wasn't Tennessee the one that was doing the video editing grab ass last year? Is that the team? River would know.
There was an incident, right? Yeah, there was one incident where something got edited.
Yeah, okay.
But it was more of it was totally innocent, and then we cooked it up into something bigger.
Yeah, it wasn't like an intentional like scumbag move type deal, but like somebody threw an interception or something, and then they threw the wrong throw, or they edited the wrong throw into the pick or into the video that the pick came from, or something like that.
Yeah, it was something like that. Yeah, and so the quarterback situation with McIntyre and Faison, and Faison Brandon, I don't think they're going to have a whole lot of stuff you can parse from spring practice. You'll see them play at the end of spring practice. But I mean, if I'm Josh Heupel, I'm not making any decisions right now. I'm just letting this play out as long as I can to figure this out. And remember, there's also Ryan Staub, the Colorado transfer. So he's in it too, but it seems like it's McIntyre or Brandon. McIntyre seems like, because he was the backup last year, because he has more experience, and Brandon just got on campus, that McIntyre would have the edge here. But again, I think there's a long way to go in this thing.
Yeah. I just saw the clip that River played of Brandon in high school. He has a nice throwing motion, and he's a large human being. So that's an exciting player. And Tennessee needs one of those.
He's a 5-star.
One of those 3 guys to step up and do something this year. And I think that Heupel will get the most out of whoever starts there. And if he's protected by that freak on the offensive line, that certainly helps.
Oh, yeah. Well, he will be protected by David Sanders. And, the question is, will the rest of Tennessee's offensive line make the kind of jump that David Sanders made? That one, again, when you see a guy who has all the traits and then you hear him say, I understand everything now. I'm not holding on for dear life anymore. I know what everything means. I know what I'm supposed to be doing on every play. I know all the steps for every play. It should give you a lot more confidence. So that is very good to hear from him. And look, a rep like that, we can overanalyze it all we want, but that is a grown man,
March 24th.
Another large man down onto the ground. Ari, before we move on to another piece of highly coveted video, highly coveted, and remind everybody, We will be live at the Culver's Game Day Hub in downtown Indianapolis on Saturday, April 4th. That's the day of the semifinals. Everybody's still playing to get there. We got incredible games coming up on Thursday and Friday night as the teams march toward Indianapolis. But we're going to be there April 4th. If you can't make it to Indy to come say hi to us, which we love it when you do, but if you can't make it, enter the Culver Swish Swish Dish Sweepstakes now through April 5th for your shot at $2,500, and just, make plans. I realize we're not clear on who's going to make it to Indy. We won't know until Sunday night who all is going to be there. But if your team's going to make it, come have some frozen custard with me and Ari at the Culver's Game Day Hub, downtown Indianapolis on April 4th. Ari, we travel now to Austin, Texas. This is the thing you've been waiting to see. It's from Coach Dan Casey. And if you don't follow Coach Dan Casey on Instagram or Twitter, you're really missing out, because this is a guy who has an encyclopedic knowledge of football scheme and has a play video for everything. Well, he's just got a dagger route from Arch Manning to Cam Coleman right here.
Oh boy.
How you feeling, Ari?
I feel great.
How you feeling watching that?
I feel pretty great. Yeah, just wanted to take it in for the 9th time. How
many times do you think the average Texas fan has watched this clip? Or there's one we're going to play that's a montage from the first week of spring practice that has a couple Cam Coleman catches in it. Like, how many times are they just pausing on those?
Andy, when's the last time you bought something irrationally for yourself?
It happens pretty frequently. I'm trying to think what the last one was. But, well, I mean, my truck, I think I would call that fairly rational. I got the reminder that was a year ago today.
Do you ever wake up or like when you first got the truck?
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever like leave what you were doing? I'm not saying waking up out of sleep in the middle of the night, but like go into your garage or to your driveway and just look at it and then go back inside your house?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, because like I do that with my car, like frequently. We'll just go stare at it for a minute and then we'll like shut the door, smiling. Like that, is that not the same thing as watching Cam Coleman highlights? If you're like, that's a big purchase for a Texas fan.
It is a big purchase.
It's an exciting new thing it's going to promise to make your life better. Of course, you watch that clip. Now, if you really want to get excited, you can go watch what was the game that Auburn had last year where he single-handedly won it for him with the one-handed catches on back-to-back plays, the touchdown, and then the 2-point conversion.
That was his freshman year against Texas A&M. He had a couple big ones too.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's plenty of Cam Coleman footage out there. This is going. I think it was Missouri last year. There's plenty of.
It was Vanderbilt last year.
Yeah.
It was Vanderbilt last year where he just, which they still lost.
They lost the game, but he had 10 receptions for 143 yards and a touchdown, and the touchdown was a one-handed catch. And then on the very next 2-point conversion attempt, he had another one-handed catch to tie the game, I believe. So, like, there's plenty of footage of Cam Coleman out there. Maybe it's not as sexy to you because he's not wearing the type of outfit you like, which is a Texas uniform. But, Auburn's uniforms are pretty sexy too. You can go watch what this guy does. And I wrote a column earlier in the year, Andy, the offseason, that I believe that he's the single most important transfer of the entire cycle. And that might seem hyperbolic now, but I wonder if Texas is in the playoff next year, if that will turn out to age well.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one because his production doesn't match the hype so far, but we also know why, or at least we assume why, because what did we just get through talking about? We talked about Auburn and Byrum Brown and their quarterback situation, and you said, hey, enjoy having competent quarterback play with Byrum Brown. They did not have that for Cam Coleman's first 2 years. They probably should have been starting Ashton Daniels a whole season last year, and he didn't start till late. And so you had the Peyton Thorne situation his freshman year, and then you had last year Jackson Arnold. So that's why Cam Coleman's numbers probably were not what they could have been.
Now, this is a discussion in fantasy football that happens a lot in the NFL when you go up and you take a player at the receiver position very high in a draft of like, and I think this was like a discussion around Justin Jefferson a little bit of like, quarterback proof or recession proof in the sense of like, no matter who's throwing you the ball, you're so good at your position that you make stuff happen.
Oh, we learned Justin Jefferson's not even that good as he is last year.
Yeah. And he's also
the Vikings didn't have any quarterbacks.
It's just harder to be that great every year. But I do think that Cam Coleman, despite not having the cumulative stats, also had instances during his career.
Did you just catch that? What he just did in the B-roll we're playing, and so there's two Cam Coleman catches here. The one from the side where he just grabs it along, and just takes it away. That Cam Coleman right there. Raw. Him being able to reach out and snatch a football, because I think that route's against air, but you've seen him do it against DBs too, where he's gonna win that.
And we already have enough proof, regardless of his incompetent quarterback play in the past, of his ability to do so. And I think that it's funny because we are viewing Arch Manning as the competent quarterback that's going to bring the most out of him. I actually view it the other way around. I think that Cam Coleman's existence in that offense will open things up for Ryan Wingo. Their new running backs that they brought in, Hollywood Smothers being one of them, is going to certainly take pressure off. And I think that Arch Manning is going to have an incredible season because Cam Coleman is going to scare every defense that he plays. So, there's no question that I believe that Arch Manning will be able to get him the ball, but I think the opportunities for the entire offense are going to be aplenty as a result of Cam Coleman simply existing on their team.
Well, we had the conversation about Parker Livingston a few weeks ago, who went to Oklahoma from Texas. And really the reason that happened is Texas set the pecking order with the paychecks, and Parker Livingston wants to move up toward wide receiver 1 status, and he probably wasn't going to be able to be higher than wide receiver 3 on this team.
Yeah. Maybe he could have competed for wide receiver 2 because Wingo, although being a highly sought after prospect, has not produced to the level that you would have anticipated. But again,
he produced more than Livingston did last year.
No, but I'm saying they could have had a competition for 2.
Yeah.
I think that because Wingo hasn't broken out yet, but I think that it's possible that Wingo has a huge season this year. And I would have felt the same way about Parker Livingston too if he were on the team, because I do think that Cam Coleman is a first-round receiver. I think he could have the same exact stats that he had at Auburn last year, this year, and still be a first-rounder in the following draft, just based on traits, measurables, and just ability. Yeah. This is the type of acquisition that I feel like is just impossible to fail. I don't know. It's impossible to fail to me.
Well, and it'll be interesting how it affects. So you've got Emmanuel Mosley, you've got Khalil Lockett, who's kind of a big rangy receiver as well. They've got guys that if you concentrate your resources on Cam Coleman, they can burn you.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and if you don't, he'll burn you. So
right. It's going to be fun, but this is the one I feel like this. Of all the players who move to different teams, this is the one where if you've got a little bit of video of the guy, you're just watching it over again.
Cam Coleman was made for the college football sicko.
Oh yeah. No, it's and this situation was too, because you think you know why he's not already a megastar, and it's just a matter of, is it about to happen?
Mm-hmm. Texas is a bigger market too, so you can be a star at Auburn, but it's Texas.
And there's Cam Coleman walking with Arch Manning, and that video alone got tons of run. Just replay.
No, you're not. It's not just about these off-season videos. Aren't just about what they're doing on the field. Look, they're friends. That's right. Locker room. You got captains together, just hanging out. Arch Manning is really hitting it off with his new number 1 target.
We have no idea what they're talking about. They could be insulting each other for all we know.
Or just have to walk next to each other because they're both headed in the right direction. I don't know, but don't ever let facts or
but I'm perfectly okay with a good 500 word fan fiction message board post about what they were talking about.
Yeah. I'm with you. I'm with you.
Oh, it's going to be so much fun. Speaking of dynamic duos, we got one
Me
more.
and you. Me and you. Oh.
Well, it's us too, but
There's plenty of video of us online.
Thinking of a more physically impressive dynamic duo, let's go to Ohio State. We know about Jeremiah Smith. We know he is an alien. People that big and that fast should not have that kind of body control, should not have that soft of hands, but he exists. So what would be the one thing you could do that would make things even more unfair if you have to cover Ohio State? Oh, and a giant fast guy whose dad was an NFL receiver.
Have you
Chris
watched,
Henry Jr.
Have you one of the clips that Rivers showed? I think he dropped a ball, so like we could.
He did. It was a drop. I was too busy watching how tall and effortlessly he moved. So,
Andy, have you ever watched his high school tapes?
it's pretty awesome for modern day.
Ohio State keeps leveling up the receivers year over year. There's no way you can be better than Jeremiah Smith, but putting him on that field is absolutely insane. Because this is a 5-star freak, tall, rangy guy with insane hands. Although he did drop it, and we can't freak out about that drop as it's his head not in the game.
Oh, I guarantee you there was a major freak out over the drop.
The light's too bright in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. I don't know. But here I saw this tweet yesterday because did you know our Steve Wiltfong wrote an interesting story about Jet Harrison, which is a 5-star receiver and the number 1 overall player in the
27
class. Or 28 class, not 27.
28, yeah.
And then somebody listed this out of NFL contracts that Ohio State has at the receiver position after Jackson Smith and Jigba signed his $168.6 million deal. Garrett Wilson is making $130 million. Terry McLaurin is making $97 million. Now, I don't know if you want to count this. Jamison Williams is making $80 million. Marvin Harrison, $35 million. Chris Olave, $19.3 million. Emeka Egbuka, who just had a very good rookie season, $18.2 million.
Yeah, the last three you just mentioned are all rookie deals. So, like, when they hit free agency, it should get better for them.
And I don't know if Jamison counts because he transferred to Bama and had a very good year at Bama. But Jeremiah will be a top 5 pick, maybe the number 1 overall pick in next year's draft. Maybe not. We'll see about quarterback and how Arch does and all those things. He's probably not going to be better than Jeremiah Smith because I think Jeremiah Smith is like the perfect mold of receiver. He is going to be a first-round pick one day. Like, he's the next one. So, and I don't know what that's going to mean in terms of, and this might be a nice segue to the second half of the show because we're going to have an Ohio State discussion.
We definitely are.
Putting him on the field with Jeremiah Smith next year and the returning production on offense, Ohio State's going to score a ton of points next year.
Yeah, and you got Julian Sayin, who's one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the country. It's really, for Ohio State, their offensive line has to get better than it was at the end of last year. That was what kept them and held them back from winning the national title last year. That's what they lost to Miami because they were dominated up front. They lost to Indiana in the Big Ten championship game because Indiana was really good up front. They fixed that. They got what they need. But let's talk about Ohio State this season because BetMGM, our friends, our sponsors, they dropped a bunch of win totals over the weekend. And the Big Ten win totals look very interesting when you put them all together because we are accustomed, when we look at Big Ten win totals, to seeing one logo at the top. But Ohio State does not have the highest win total. It is not tied for the highest win total. Oregon and Indiana tied for the highest at 10.5. Ohio State with a 9.5. Ari, do you remember the last time Ohio State didn't win 10 games in a regular season?
I do. This is institutional knowledge for me.
Yes.
Do you know?
Yes. 2011, when Luke Fickell was the interim coach between Jim Tressel and Urban Meyer.
And half their team was suspended.
15 years ago. 15 years ago. And so you're telling me that there's a chance they could go 9-3?
Yes. So here's the deal. Obviously, they are replacing like a large portion of their defense. Okay.
Correct.
And I know Bill
they had to do last year too. And they got better somehow on defense.
Bill Connolly from ESPN just released his most returning production from or his list of returning production. And Ohio State is somewhere in the low 30s, I believe. Here is the reality of this. Ohio State plays on the road at Texas in the preseason, and the two teams at the top of this list in the Big Ten, Oregon and Indiana, I don't believe have a huge non-conference game.
Yeah, so Oregon's got Oklahoma State, which we think they're going to be a lot better than they were when they played in Eugene last year, but we don't think they're going to be on the level of Texas, obviously.
There are 8 teams on the BetMGM over/under, or on the BetMGM win totals list that are 9.5 games or better. 8 total teams. Ohio State's got to play 3 of them.
Yes,
3 of the other ones.
And that's the issue. That's what this is. It's they play at Texas and they have a very difficult Big Ten draw. That is purely why that number is where it is. And like
this is the
Indiana,
most regular season schedule Ohio State has had in my lifetime, I think.
Yes, Indiana purposely schedules terrible non-conference opponents. So there's your difference. There's your 1 game difference right there.
Now, you can assign yourself a loss, but here's the thing with Ohio State that I think needs to be said. Now, if Michigan is its own entity, and I kind of think that the Michigan game is like beyond analysis to a certain extent.
Well, the 2024 game would tell us that's true.
Ryan Day has not lost to an inferior opponent. Only one other time, I think, was 21 when they lost to Oregon, but that was Oregon. They don't lose games they shouldn't to anyone ever.
Right.
Unless Michigan.
So that's why. So I wrote the column examining all the Big Ten totals. And when I did the SEC, when I found 5 totals that seemed a little wonky, and I had 4 that I thought were overs and 1 that I thought was an under. The Big Ten was a lot harder. I had 3 that I thought were definite overs. I couldn't find any that felt like definite unders because they were incredibly conservative with their win totals for the teams that they don't expect to be very good. Like Purdue's at a 3.5, Michigan State's at 3.5. It's a very different set of totals. Yeah.
So I think that maybe we should try to get Bill on our show to talk about his returning production because I find this to be fascinating.
Well, and I want to point out, I said Ohio State would go over because I'm sorry, I'm not ready to say they're going to be 9-3 unless I see them lose
It's just hard to envision. It's hard to envision them losing 3 games. But let me tell you something.
This is the same as I said with Georgia in the SEC because Georgia's at 9.5. Like until I see Georgia go 9-3, I'm not going to buy it.
Like, we don't know if you throw their schedule back up for me, River, what USC is going to be. It's possible that USC, when I was on Doug and Bill's show yesterday, we were talking about this. USC, and this is kind of maybe another episode idea for later on, like the biggest agents of chaos for this. Like last year, A&M was an agent of chaos. This year, SC is, in terms of like, what if SC is actually really good? Like, then that changes.
Yeah, it changes a lot of things. Yes.
But we did have an off-season discussion about 9-3 when we were in the middle of the hell of talking about scheduling strength and how 9-3 has been kind of like the cutoff line between getting in the CFP and not. Like if you look at Ohio State's schedule there and they're 9-3, like there's a high likelihood that they would still maybe even get in depending on what's around.
They would certainly be in the mix. I mean, would a 9-3 for Ohio State this year with a loss at Texas be essentially the same as Texas's 9-3 last year? Probably not, because there's not a bad, like Texas had what was considered a bad loss to Florida. If Ohio State were to lose a 3rd game or were to lose games 2 and 3 within the Big Ten, it's probably going to be to somebody really good.
Yeah, unless you make the case that they would have to beat one of the top tier teams to get in, because like Texas also had a win over an A&M team last year, and it was at the time their only loss of the season, I think that you would make the case that Ohio State would have to beat Indiana or Oregon and then lose to a team like Nebraska or something to make that the same resume. But let me point out, Texas didn't make the playoff last year at 9-3. Texas's resume in some years from last year would have been good enough. So just because it didn't work for them last year doesn't mean that that same exact resume doesn't get them in 27 or 20.
I also just don't think Ohio State's going to go 9-3. Like,
yeah.
I need to see that happen before I will believe it can happen. 15 years of this, of them being that good. Now, I realize the schedules weren't as good, but they still have a prohibitive talent advantage over most of the teams they play. Will they against Texas and Oregon? No. We've seen enough from Curt Cignetti to trust him. So that one's obviously going to be a very interesting game in Bloomington. Michigan's Michigan. At Iowa is not going to be easy. But again, how many of these games is Ohio State going to be favored in?
I would say they're probably favored in every one of them. No,
maybe not. They'll probably dogs against Texas, and then we'll see what happens with Indiana, SC, and Oregon. Because SC is going to be an interesting one. Like you said, we'll know by the time SC plays Ohio State kind of where they're at, because they play Oregon and Washington in rapid succession when they start Big Ten play.
Yeah, they play in September, right? They play Oregon. But here's the other thing, and this might be a segue to the next topic. But Indiana was the most wonderful story in college football history last year. Curt Cignetti is perhaps the greatest coach I've ever seen and the best coach in college football currently. Is Las Vegas, which has them, BetMGM specifically has them as one of the 4 favorites to win the national title next year. I know they got Josh Hoover. I know that Curt Cignetti knows how to analyze players. They lost a lot from last year's team. Are we in the Indiana is a national championship contender already again camp? 10.5 wins a lot.
So this is why I did not make a pick with Indiana. I felt like it was too early to call on that, because if it was 9.5, then I probably would have said, yes, take the over. But 10.5, I'm not comfortable with that yet, because we don't know how they reload. Now, they still have some of those guys, because you say, oh, well, he lost all the guys that came from JMU. That's not true. Like, Tyreek Tucker's still there. And then people like
Pat
Carter
Coogan's
Smith.
still there, right?
No, Pat Coogan's gone.
No, Pat Coogan left, yeah.
Yeah.
Who's the other offensive lineman they kept?
Carter Smith is still there. Carter Smith didn't come from JMU. He was at Indiana all along.
Yeah, but he was good, and he's coming back.
Yeah, decided to come back. So, yeah, they've got a few guys coming back who understand what they are and what they've done. But they've also done some work in the portal. You mentioned Josh Hoover at quarterback. Nick Marsh was Michigan State's best receiver last year. You know, they did not shy away from going and getting what they need. And we'll see. This number is a sign of respect for Curt Cignetti. It is saying, we are sorry we doubted you. Because, all right, I went and looked it up. Do you know what the win total was for Indiana last year, coming off an 11-1 regular season and a college football playoff appearance?
8.5, I think it was.
It was 8.5. That's right. Yeah. And that schedule, if you thought Indiana was going to be the same or better as they were in 24, you would slam the over on that at 8.5. So this, I think, is a correction for that.
Yeah. 10.5 against any schedule is tough. It's just a tough thing to expect. Because they could go under this and still make the playoff. Although their schedule might not be strong enough. I don't know. But if they beat Ohio State, certainly it is, right? So like I was
gonna say, if you're 10-2 with losses to, say, Washington and Michigan. Or Ohio State and Washington, you still beat Michigan and USC, and at that point, it depends on how good are Michigan and USC.
Yeah, I mean, but there's virtually 0% chance that they're not at least 6-0 going into the Ohio State game at home on October 17th.
Yeah, it's. I mean, unless you're expecting Nebraska to be significantly better, unless you think Chip Kelly is going to really light things up at Northwestern. I'm not doubting Curt Cignetti anymore, but asking for 11 wins, even with a schedule that's not the hardest schedule in the world, is still asking a lot.
Yeah. It's hard to, I mean, it's like, yeah. I think that you made the right call not making a decision, because on one hand, it's like, God, 11 wins after what they did last year again, tough. Doubting Curt Cignetti, even tougher. So, like, you don't want to do either of those things.
Well, and I had the same issue with Oregon, because they're also 10.5.
Mm-hmm.
And Oregon's schedule is slightly harder, but Oregon's roster is loaded. Like, Oregon may have the best roster in the country this year.
Oregon has ranks number 11 on Connolly's list at 66% returning production from last year's team. And that doesn't even include Evan Stewart, who should be back.
Right.
And some of the portal additions that they got that were important. So, yeah, Oregon's another team that I think could break through. And, you know, like I sometimes I struggle.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for instance, like Nebraska has the number 3 overall returning production at 69%, which, like, is that always good though? Like, I don't always know if that's like a good thing. When you have a good team like Oregon and you're that high, that's really good. When you're Maryland, who's number 2 on the list, I'm not sure that's great. So, you know, we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. But Oregon, Indiana, and Ohio State all being in that same echelon, I think, makes a lot of sense for the Big Ten race. And obviously, as we pointed out, Ohio State is one game beneath them because they play a road game at another team that has a 9.5 point win, or 9.5 win total.
Now, there were actually 2 other teams that I said I feel like you should take the over because of history, because they just historically are so much better than what you're predicting here. And Iowa, 6 of the last 8 non-pandemic seasons, 8 regular season wins or more. Iowa's at 7.5. I feel like take Brian Ferentz out of the equation, which they did a few years ago, and you're probably going to win 8 games every year.
Yeah.
Have some 9s and 10s in there. So I have a hard time saying don't take the over on that. Like, that feels like an instant over.
That was always a big deal too. And, like, again, we don't know, enough about everybody to make hard line sand predictions, but like the Iowa State game, which is always a tough 3-point type rivalry, has an impact on that over under 2. And they have Iowa State at home this year, and Iowa State might need some time to get back to where they were without Matt Campbell being there anymore. So, like, when you look though,
well, and yeah, the Iowa State thing was a big, because so Matt Campbell's at Penn State. You're, that's in the league, but they don't play Penn State. So now they have Iowa State rebuilding after losing Matt Campbell, and that's a game they lost last year. Like, I feel very confident about Iowa being able to win 8.
Yeah, I mean, in their back half of their schedule is basically a Big Ten West schedule. I know they have, if he throws it back up there, Purdue in there, but that's a gift from the East, the old East. But Nebraska, Illinois, Northwestern, Wisconsin, and Purdue, like a Big Ten West.
Get through those first 3 Big Ten games. Like this, the first 3 Big Ten games, which is at Michigan, Ohio State at home, and at Washington, that will determine whether Iowa's a playoff contender, not whether they're going to go over 7.5.
Yeah. So I think that's one that does strike me as attractive. Although betting on Iowa for an entire season is going to be quite the hard test, because I don't know if I could stomach watching.
I don't know. See, I can't even make fun of it anymore. Like, we had the old drive to 225 back when they put that clause in Brian Ferentz's contract, and I don't even think we need to make fun anymore. They're just consistently good. And
but I'm not making fun of them.
Yeah.
Their brand of football is typically promoting close field position type games. So, like, it's not that their offense is inept or they can't get a first down like it used to be, but it's also like you're going to be in a lot of 13-9 games that are going to be, determined by whether a punt is good or not. Like
let me throw another style of play win total at you from the Big Ten. The other one that I said feels like an instant over is Minnesota.
Yeah, 5.5 is low. It feels like.
Yeah, 5.5 feels very low for Minnesota, which, Look, they've been very consistent under PJ Fleck. This is another one that 6 of 8 non-pandemic seasons they would have gone over this total, and I see no it's interesting, and PJ Fleck actually talked about this week. They lost Coy Parrish in the portal.
Mm-hmm.
That was the great safety who's also athletic enough to play receiver. He went to Oregon. He's replacing Dylan Thieneman at Oregon. That's really all they lost. They kept everybody else they wanted to keep. They kept Darius Taylor. They kept they kept the guys they wanted to have that they felt like they could build the team around. Drake Lindsey, their quarterback, they've got what they need. And so you're saying all they got to do is be bowl eligible? Yeah, I'm okay with that. I can work with that.
Yeah. They've got kind of a tough schedule. And I mean, they play Mississippi State, which, should be a win, but Mississippi State also is in
Mississippi State's tricky.
They're pretty good.
Yeah.
Or they were competent last year. I don't know if I'd say pretty good, but Eastern Illinois, Akron in the non-con, but then you have at Washington, Michigan, Iowa, Indiana, Penn State, and Wisconsin on the road, which, is always a tough game regardless of how good Wisconsin is, which is not the easiest schedule in the world. And that doesn't even include, some weird road games. So like
but again, you can lose 6 of them and still go over.
Yes. No, I think that is a pretty interesting one. Can I send you over to a feelings one now?
Yeah, absolutely.
What does Wisconsin have to do to be okay with Fickell, and why is 6.5 their number?
Okay. I am glad you mentioned that, because I actually looked at this and said, this is a vote of confidence in Luke Fickell. Now, go back to last season. Right about the time they said they were going to keep Fickell, that's when things started to turn slightly hopeful. Because remember, we were sure Wisconsin was going to go 2-10, and they were well on their way to 2-10. And then somehow they managed to beat Washington and Illinois at the end of the season. And it made no sense. But they played their asses off. The 2 freshman linebackers, Mason Poza and Cooper Catalano, they emerged as stars. And you thought, okay, well, maybe this defense could be pretty good. Maybe that's what you build around. Maybe that, offensively, you got to figure something out, but you got something you can build on. And then they said, Chris McIntosh, their AD, I talked to him and did a story on this just right around the time it happened. He said he'd done a bad job funding the roster, and they needed to give Luke Fickell more support funding the roster. And I will tell you, and Pete Nakos will tell you from talking to people in the player agent world, Wisconsin had money to spend this offseason. They were making respectable offers to players in the portal. And so presumably you'd think their roster will get better. And they get Colton Joseph, who is the quarterback from Old Dominion last year, who he had a really good year for Ricky Ronnie at Old Dominion. So I don't know. Maybe they are significantly better than they were last year. And I mean, to go over here, you got to be 7-5. Now, are you asking me, are they unhappy with 7-5? I think given what they've endured, 7-5 is progress.
Tough opener.
Yeah, playing Notre Dame right out of the gate is rough, but they did not get the toughest Big Ten draw. They have Penn State, they have USC, they have Iowa.
No, Ohio State, Indiana, or Michigan's a pretty nice boon for them.
Yeah,
Oregon.
Yeah. So their toughest game is Notre Dame at Lambeau Field to start. But we don't know what Penn State's going to be with Matt Campbell yet. We assume they're going to be good, but we don't know.
You could talk me into Wisconsin.
Yeah. Michigan State has the lowest expectations of any team in the league. UCLA, we think Bob Chesney's going to turn them around and be really good, but does that happen right away? Rutgers, Maryland, Purdue. We talked about Minnesota already. Yeah, Wisconsin could be sitting there maybe 7 wins, maybe 8 wins. And if that happens, I think you're okay with Luke Fickell.
Yeah. Okay. You can talk me into it. Very manageable schedule, which is part of the reason why the number's higher than we would have thought.
There's a path forward. Now, if they either not told the truth or if they just hadn't spent money on the roster, or if this is something that still may happen that we have to consider. If they chose poorly in the transfer portal, then it's still not going to work. But I do think they were telling the truth about devoting more resources so that they could have a better roster. They were trying to spend money. So it's really comes down to how well did they choose those players.
Yeah. And sometimes it's like it's like hard because like when you get so wrapped up in portal season, you get bogged down and rightfully so on like the big moves.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really hard to really tell.
Yeah.
Which
the hay is made when somebody got 7 former 3-star recruits that are going to be quality starters that are great scheme fits.
That don't move the needle with your headlines.
Yeah. Yep. So that is the challenge there, and we will find out whether Luke Fickell did that or not. And I don't know. That is going to be one of the big mysteries of the college football season. I can't wait to see them play. And I don't expect them to beat Notre Dame, but if they come out and they look respectable against Notre Dame, then you're looking at the rest of the schedule like, hey, these guys could be all right.
I hope for their sake they are. Because they were a program that were not 9 wins wasn't good enough. So now we're back.
Yeah.
That and like the longer it goes, the more likely you are to turn into Nebraska, which they don't want. So like that's the two wins at the end of the season, I thought were pretty telling because they could have quit so easily. They could have completely bagged it by that point, and they didn't. And they went and beat 2 really good teams. I mean, Washington ends up winning 9 games. Illinois ends up winning 9 games. And they beat them both. So I don't know that they were that far away. They did have some horrible injury luck at the beginning of last season with their centers. So, and the quarterback's been injured too over the course of time too. Now that doesn't mean that they shouldn't be able to.
Yeah, they went and got Billy Elvers Jr. out of the portal and he got hurt game 1, non-contact.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, you hope Colton Joseph comes in and gives you a healthy season because they've had some really bad luck with portal quarterbacks getting hurt. But that's one of the more fascinating stories of the season. And so that was one that jumped off the page at me when BetMGM dropped those totals.
Mm-hmm.
6.5. I was like, ooh, boy, that's high.
Yeah,
that's high. But we shall see what happens. Nebraska 6.5. We've talked a lot about Nebraska. We've chewed on that plenty.
USC 8.5, important year for them, but very hard schedule.
We've chewed on that plenty. Yeah, with USC 8.5 and Nebraska 6.5, same boat where you could, if you go barely over, you're over. But the fan base probably still isn't happy. Like a 9-win USC and a 7-win Nebraska isn't really going to make everybody ecstatic.
And Producer River just pointed this out, but we have to at least touch on it for a second. Penn State being right there on the same line as Ohio State in year 1 of Matt Campbell is interesting.
Well, a lot of that's schedule-based. Penn State got the kindest draw in the Big Ten. They play USC and Michigan in consecutive weeks in October, and that will probably define their season. They're also at Washington, which is not going to be easy. But they've got the path. The carpet's rolled out for them. Now they have a terrible non-conference schedule where that's not going to help them at all in terms of resume and making the playoffs. So they're going to have to. They can't. Like I don't think you can lose SC and Michigan and make the playoff at 10-2. You're probably sitting in the Vanderbilt spot from last year.
Yeah,
if that happens. But if you won one of those games and then drop something further along, then you can make the playoff, and 10 wins is definitely doable in year 1 under Matt Campbell.
Yeah. But longer list, longer, bigger conference, but very interesting stuff to track. And it's been fun talking about this with you. And yeah, I like looking at these lists, and I like envisioning to myself which one is so wrong that it's going to be like the bet's going to be hit by the middle of October.
I feel like the folks at BetMGM have been very conservative this year. I don't feel like they've gone out on a lot of limbs.
Yeah, well,
they're trying to make money. Minnesota, the 5.5 for Minnesota feels like the one here.
Yeah. I mean, there are certain instances
way off.
There are certain instances in these two where we're not showing the juice. So these are just the numbers. Like, for instance, like Notre Dame's win total is 11.5, right? Which seems like a pretty high ask to go undefeated to hit. But if you look at Notre Dame's schedule, you can't go down to 10.5 because they're not losing twice. So you have to put the number where it goes, but that doesn't mean that the over is not juiced out of its mind, or the under of the 11 and 1 and juiced out. So, the numbers can be deceiving too, because sometimes they're trying to they put a number because they have to, and then they force you to pick a side that you might not want to pick just based on that. But I think that all the numbers here seem pretty reasonable and rational, and obviously schedule based.
Well, and to give you an example, the Minnesota one is minus 125 for over 5.5. It is plus 105 for under 5.5. So yeah, you make more money if you hit the under.
Yeah.
So that said, I don't think the under is going to hit on that one. Row the boat, baby. Row the boat. And in Minnesota, if you got some, we're getting rolling here. Need some spring practice clips. Need some Darius Taylor. Need some Drake Lindsay.
Let's see something. Let's see like a one-handed catch or something. Remember the spring practice clip last year from Iowa of Gronowski throwing that 4-yard out?
Yes.
Like, oh my God.
Listen, keep them coming. And if you got a clip from your team that inspires you to write fan fiction or inspires you to run in the message board, then by all means, please send it our way. Oh, here's the slow motion Mark Gronowski 4-yard completion.
The fact that River just had that thing, and everybody was like, oh my God. And then all the other fan bases that are used to having competent offense were just like, that's just a regular second down play.
To be fair, it's like a 7-yard completion.
Okay, it's a 7-yard completion, but we tapped the toes on the sideline. We're going to be heading into Mega Board Wednesday and mailbag episodes later in the week, but we do have some other exciting things that we could break down. Like I saw a prompt that was, if you could change one rule in college football and it go into effect immediately, what would that rule be? I think that's an interesting.
I've got one. I'm not going to say it.
That'll be my mailbag question for this week. But
yes,
there's some stuff. Also, I want to get JD on our show to talk about his insane list last week too. Let's not forget about that. But
let's reach out to JD Piquel, because he had a great list of people who deserve more respect in college football, the most disrespected people in college football. And the Mike Bobo entry alone could probably fill 3 shows.
The thing that is interesting and genius about the list is everybody on the list is already inherently hated by a large group of people. So you put the list out saying they deserve respect, but it's a list of 10 people that make people mad already.
Yes.
So, Ryan Day, James Franklin, Arch Manning, Dabo Sweeney, Kalen DeBoer, Pat McAfee caught a stray on this list. Do people hate him?
I don't know. I feel like that's engagement bait. We know Pat follows on 3.
Yeah.
On Twitter and Instagram. I feel like that's Pat going, I'm going to retweet this. JD's not stupid. JD knows what he's doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we got to talk to JD about that.
Yeah.
Mega Board Wednesday tomorrow. We'll talk to you then.